The Boston Celtics find themselves on the edge of a season that feels unlike anything fans have experienced in recent years. The upcoming training camp, set to begin in just a matter of weeks, is not merely a checkpoint on the NBA calendar. It carries with it the weight of decisions that could reshape the identity of the franchise for the next decade. The trade that sent Jrue Holiday to the Portland Trail Blazers, combined with Kristaps Porzingis being shipped to the Atlanta Hawks, already gave a strong indication that Brad Stevens is writing a new chapter. Add to that the devastating Achilles injury suffered by Jayson Tatum, and suddenly Boston is staring at a reality that demands reinvention. Yet within this landscape of uncertainty, a single name has emerged that has electrified the imagination of the fanbase, a name that carries both history and hope: Isaiah Thomas. When Max Letterman of NBC Boston floated the idea of bringing back Isaiah Thomas, whether as a player or in a hybrid player-coach role, it was not just a nostalgic suggestion. It was a spark. For 3 unforgettable seasons between 2015 and 2017, Thomas embodied the spirit of Boston basketball. Averaging nearly 25 points per game, dishing out 6 assists, and relentlessly attacking despite his 5'9" frame, he became more than a scorer. He became a symbol of resilience. Fans still remember how he played through personal tragedy and physical pain, how he carried the Celtics to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2017, and how he gave every ounce of himself before being traded for Kyrie Irving in a move that shook the franchise's emotional core. Now, the question that lingers is not simply whether Thomas can still contribute on the floor. It is whether the Celtics dare to reunite with a figure whose presence could redefine their identity at a time when the team is caught between transition and opportunity. Thomas has not played in the NBA since the 2023 to 2024 season, but he has not retired. His desire to return is no secret. His willingness to mentor younger guards like Anfernee Simons and even challenge veterans like Derek White and Jaylen Brown to refine their leadership is exactly the kind of intangible presence Boston may be missing. A roster aiming to become younger and cheaper could still find immense value in someone whose story resonates far beyond the box score. The idea of a player-coach role in today's NBA might sound unconventional, but think about the symbolism it would carry. For a team recalibrating after losing stars and navigating injuries, Thomas would not only provide mentorship but also serve as a bridge between eras. His influence in the locker room could accelerate the growth of emerging guards, teaching them what it truly means to wear green and white under the spotlight of TD Garden. As for a coaching-only position, the reality is trickier. Head coach Joe Mazzulla currently has no available staff spots, and unlike Brad Stevens, he never worked with Thomas as a player. Yet even this obstacle feeds into the intrigue. Could Stevens carve out a new role to accommodate one of the most beloved figures in recent Celtics history? Could a front office that has emphasized long-term development recognize that sometimes leadership and inspiration are worth more than another mid-level free agent signing? The financial side of such a move would hardly be complicated. Thomas would not command a major salary, certainly nothing close to the massive contracts that have defined Boston's recent roster construction. In fact, his return would be less about numbers and more about narrative. Imagine the energy at TD Garden on opening night if Thomas were introduced once again in a Celtics uniform. Imagine the jolt it would give a team that many believe is entering a rebuild, a reminder that Boston basketball is never about surrender, but about belief. The curiosity that now grips fans is not whether Thomas can put up 25 points again. It is whether Brad Stevens, known for his calculated and often surprising moves, sees the bigger picture. Could this reunion be the emotional ignition that carries the Celtics through what might otherwise be seen as a transitional season? Could Isaiah Thomas, the king of the fourth quarter, once again shape the destiny of a team that always seems to rise when the odds are stacked against it? One thing is certain. As training camp approaches, the whispers around Isaiah Thomas are no longer just about nostalgia. They are about possibility. The Celtics stand at a crossroads, and the decision they make in the coming weeks could determine not just the future of their roster, but the heartbeat of their franchise. Fans are left asking the same question with anticipation. Will Boston bring back the man who once made the Garden shake? And could that decision change everything again? Countdown to training camp is almost over, and whispers around Boston suggest that Brad Stevens may still have one more card hidden up his sleeve. While most franchises are shutting their doors and finalizing rosters, the Celtics remain in the middle of a storm of speculation. And the most intriguing question right now is whether Anfernee Simons is really the long-term piece Boston envisions, or if he is the chess piece that unlocks a bigger transformation. NBC Sports Insiders painted several possible futures, each carrying weight, risk, and reward. Chris Forsberg's scenario is perhaps the boldest. He imagines the Celtics sending Simons to Chicago in exchange for Ayo Dosunmu, Jalen Smith, and Dallin Terry. On paper, it looks like a salary maneuver since Simons' contract stands at $27 million this season, and Boston would save nearly $6 million. But behind the numbers hides the real intrigue. Ayo is not just a filler, he is a player who has grown each season, who can defend multiple positions, create his own shot, and still play off the ball. He makes just $7.5 million, a bargain in today's league, and he has the durability Boston quietly values. More than 76 games played in 3 straight seasons before last year is not luck, it is consistency. The Celtics could secure him long-term at around $15 million per year, and the curiosity is whether Stevens sees him as a future pillar next to Derek White and Peyton Pritchard while Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown carry the wings. But the story deepens. Another proposed trade sends Simons for Nikola Vucevic. On the surface, this addresses Boston's thin frontcourt, yet the logic feels less convincing. Vucevic is nearing the final stretch of his career and would be a one-year rental without strong defensive impact. In a league where flexibility matters as much as talent, committing to him might be a trap rather than a solution. The very fact this idea is circulating shows the uncertainty around Simons, and that uncertainty is exactly what keeps fans on edge. Then comes a very different proposal, one that is less about contracts and more about emotion. Max Letterman suggested bringing Isaiah Thomas back into the Celtics family, either as a player or within the coaching staff. 7 years have passed since Boston traded him after his heroic playoff run, yet the wound never fully closed. Imagine the shock if Stevens restored that connection. Even if his impact came off the court rather than on it, the symbolism of Thomas's return would send ripples through the locker room and across the league. Sometimes the biggest moves are not about money or stats, but about belief, and the Celtics know that belief is their strongest currency. Other scenarios widen the mystery. Could Boston flip Simons into a multi-team trade that brings in Terrence Mann and Ochai Agbaji, adding depth and flexibility while keeping the door open for another mid-season adjustment? Would they dare chase a shooter like Malik Beasley, who only months ago seemed destined for a $42 million deal with Detroit before an investigation briefly clouded his future? His market collapsed, his shooting remains elite, and the Celtics could sneak into that situation if Stevens sees a hidden path to free up space. And yet, perhaps the most shocking possibility is the simplest. Kevin Miller argued that Boston should just keep Simons, roll the dice, and see what he becomes in a winning environment. After years on a struggling franchise, no one truly knows what his ceiling looks like next to Tatum and Brown. If Stevens believes, then every fan has reason to believe too. The curiosity comes from the silence because no decision has been made and every path remains open. The truth is this, the Celtics are not standing still, even when it looks quiet. Whether it's trading Simons for Ayo and reshaping the backcourt, exploring bold but risky frontcourt answers, reuniting with a legend, or holding the line and trusting patience, each option holds the potential to alter not just this season, but the next decade. Training camp is only weeks away. Yet the real question is whether Boston will enter it with the roster we see today, or with a version no one expects. And that question is exactly what keeps hope alive for every Celtics fan who senses that the biggest move might not have happened yet. Boston Celtics are navigating one of the most delicate and unpredictable offseasons in recent memory, and the silence from the front office feels almost louder than words. With Jayson Tatum recovering and the organization carefully managing its luxury tax situation, every move Boston makes in the coming weeks could alter not just the upcoming season, but the trajectory of the franchise for years. Rumors are no longer whispers, they are turning into real conversations, and one name that suddenly sits at the center of it all is Anfernee Simons. Simons, the high-scoring guard who landed in Boston as part of the Jrue Holiday deal, has quickly become more than just a footnote. His future with the Celtics might be short-lived, not because of lack of talent, but because of the type of chess game Brad Stevens seems to be playing. The scenario that is currently gaining traction among insiders feels like the kind of move that can shock an entire fan base, a potential deal that would send Simons to the Chicago Bulls in exchange for two-time All-Star Nikola Vucevic, who is entering the final year of his contract. At first glance, the trade proposal looks almost too simple. The Celtics receive Nikola Vucevic, the Bulls receive Anfernee Simons. Both players are on expiring contracts, both teams address different needs, and the math checks out. But simplicity on paper does not capture the complexity beneath the surface, especially for a team like Boston that stands on the edge of either consolidating dominance or slipping into costly mistakes. Why does this possibility carry weight? Because the Celtics are staring at a frontcourt that feels more uncertain than at any point in the last decade. Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford, and Luke Kornet are gone, leaving a rotation that features Chris Boucher and the rising Neemias Queta, who is turning heads at Eurobasket but remains untested at the highest level of playoff basketball. That void is not just about minutes, it is about identity. Boston has built its recent success on versatility and size, and without a reliable anchor in the paint, the foundation feels thinner than fans might want to admit. This is where Nikola Vucevic becomes more than a name. The big man averaged 18.5 points and just over 10 rebounds last season, numbers that prove his ability to control the glass and stretch the floor. His offensive repertoire would immediately bring balance to a Celtics roster that risks leaning too heavily on the perimeter. Yet the intrigue is not only statistical. Vucevic represents short-term security without locking the team into long-term commitments. His contract expiring after this season would give Boston the ability to pivot quickly, maintaining flexibility while plugging a hole that could otherwise derail their campaign. But the argument to hold on to Simons is just as compelling, maybe even more. At only 25 years old, Simons is entering his prime, and his scoring ability is not theoretical, it is proven. Under the guidance of Joe Mazzulla, with Boston's offensive system creating constant spacing and ball movement, Simons could elevate his value in ways that the league has not yet fully seen. If he starts the season strong, his trade value might skyrocket, giving Boston leverage to chase a bigger prize than a 33-year-old center who the Bulls once shopped aggressively. There is also the financial element. Moving Simons for Vucevic would help alleviate Boston's ballooning tax bill, an issue that hovers over every decision this front office makes. On the surface, this looks like smart business. But is it wise to trade away future upside for what essentially amounts to one season of stability? Is it the type of move that champions make, or the kind of adjustment teams make when they are worried about balance sheets more than banners? That is the real tension in this debate. Boston is not just another franchise. This is a team that plays under the weight of 17 championships, where every choice is measured against the standard of hanging another banner. Fans are right to feel torn, because this decision is not black and white. Adding Vucevic gives Boston an immediate answer at center, while keeping Simons leaves the door open for a more ambitious move later. The truth is that the Celtics are not in a position of desperation, they are in a position of strength. And that strength allows them to be patient, to see what Simons can bring before deciding if he should be the piece moved in pursuit of something larger. Trading him now might provide relief and a quick fix, but waiting could unlock a far bigger prize. For a franchise that has learned to play the long game, this patience might be the most powerful move of all. Boston's frontcourt may feel uncertain, but uncertainty can also be opportunity. The real question is not whether the Celtics should trade Simons for Vucevic, but whether this front office is willing to sacrifice potential greatness for temporary balance. The answer to that question could define the story of the 25-26 season.